Hello everyone. I, Parul Shinde, along with my coordinator, Nikita Shinde, studying in final year B Pharmacy from Shivajirao as Jondhle College of Pharmacy. We have made this presentation to explain you about the drug 5-hydroxytryptamine or 5-HT, also known as serotonin, under the guidance of Dr. Nitin Mohire, professor and principal of our college, and co-guided by Ashar Mashwa ma'am. AUTACOIDS. Autacoid is a term which is derived from its Greek word in which auto means self and akos means a healing substance or a remedy. These are diverse substances produced by a wide variety of cells in the body having intense biological activity, but they generally act locally. Example, within inflammatory pockets at the site of synthesis and release. They have also been called as local hormones. Classification of autacoids. Autacoids are classified into three types. First, amine derived, second, peptide derived, and third is lipid derived. Examples of amine derived are histamine, which is synthesized from its amino acid histidine, and serotonin, which is synthesized from its amino acid tryptophan. Examples of peptide derived are angiotensin and bradykinin. Examples of lipid derived are prostaglandins, leukotrienes, interleukins, and platelet activation factor. Serotonin. Serotonin is a biochemical compound having heterocyclic rings, and its molecular formula is C10H12N2O. So, what exactly is serotonin? Serotonin, or 5-hydroxytryptamine, is a monoamine neurotransmitter. It is biochemically derived from tryptophan. It gives us the feeling of well being. Hence, serotonin is dubbed as one of the four happy hormones. It is found in plant tissue, animal tissue, and also in humans. In humans, 5-HT is released from different parts of the body. 90% of 5-HT is released from the enterochromaffin cells in the intestine, and 10% in platelets and neurons of different plexus. In plants, it is found in tomato, banana, and pineapple. In lower animals, it is found in mollusks and arthropods. Now, let us talk about the biosynthesis of serotonin. The biosynthesis of serotonin takes place in two steps. In the first step, the enzyme tryptophan hydroxylase acts on the tryptophan, which causes binding of the hydroxyl group in the fifth position. This will convert tryptophan into 5-hydroxytryptophan. In the next step, the enzyme which acts is called as hydroxytryptophan decarboxylase, which leads to the removal of the CO2 group from the 5-hydroxytryptophan. This decarboxylation forms 5-HT or serotonin, which gets stored in the vesicle, and from this vesicle they get stored in various cells of the body. Biosynthesis of 5-HT does not take place in the platelets because of the absence of enzyme 5-HT decarboxylase. The release of 5-HT takes place in the form of chemicals, which is influenced by the cholinergic and the adrenergic nervous system. They are mostly released from the hypothalamus region of the brain as well as the pineal gland, and thus also act as a hormone in the body. Serotonergic receptors. Serotonergic receptors are classified into musculotrophic and neurotropic. Methylsergide and cyproheptadine are classical blockers, which blocks T-type only. Serotonin have 5 major types of receptors, which are divided into 4 families: 5-HT1, 5-HT2, 5-HT3, and 5-HT4 to 7. It comprises of 14 receptor subtypes. All 5-HT receptors are G protein receptors, except the 5-HT3, which is an ion-gated cation channel receptor. 5-HT1 inhibits CAMP, which is cyclic adenosine monophosphate. This table shows us the various families of serotonin receptors, along with its type, mechanism, and its potential. As you can see, 5-HT2, 5-HT3, 5-HT4, 5-HT6, and 5-HT7 have excitatory potential, whereas 5-HT1 and 5-HT5 have inhibitory potential. 5-HT receptor function in the gut. 5-HT2 is further divided into three subtypes: 5-HT2A, 5-HT2B, and 5-HT2C. 5-HT2A are present in the visceral and vascular smooth muscles. It causes contractions and are also involved in platelet aggregation. 5-HT2B is involved in stomach contractions, and 5-HT2C is present in choroid plexus in the CNS. Thus, it increases the cerebrospinal fluid. 5-HT3 causes fast depolarization of ventral plexus neurons. Thus, it leads to the release of 5-HT from the enterochromaffin cells. It causes reflex effects of 5-HT emesis, gut peristalsis, bradycardia, transient hypotension, apnea, and also pain. 5-HT4 causes lower esophageal sphincter contraction. In the ventral plexus, it leads to the release of acetylcholine, which enhances peristalsis. In the intestinal mucosa, it causes secretion. 5-HT1 is an autoreceptor. It inhibits serotonergic neural activity in the brain. This causes slow depolarization of ventral plexus neurons. Now, let us talk about the mechanism of action of serotonin. 5-HT1 receptor induces membrane hyperpolarization and also reduction in the input resistance, which results from an increase in potassium conductance. Slow depolarization induced by 5-HT2 receptor causes activation in the areas such as prefrontal cortex, nucleus accumbens, and facial mood. So how do serotonin blocking drugs works? By chemotherapy and by radiotherapy, it leads to a damage to the cells in the intestine. This causes release of serotonin. At the site of action of 5-HT receptor antagonists, it leads transmission of vomit signals via nerves from the intestine to the brain. This causes stimulation of the vomiting center. This ultimately leads to vomiting. Pharmacological actions of 5-HT. CVS. On heart, serotonin has small inotropic and chronotropic effects. Now, on the blood vessels. In early depressive phase, also called early sharp fall, is caused by coronary chemoreflex, which leads to decrease in heart rate and cardiac output. Pressure effect, which cause brief rise in blood pressure due to increase in peripheral resistance, and also cardiac output. Late depressive phase, also called as a prolonged fall in blood pressure, which leads to arterial dilation and extravasation of fluid in skeletal muscles. Visceral smooth muscles. It causes increase in GIT motility, which increases the tone and facilitate peristalsis, and also diarrhea. In the glands, 5-HT inhibit gastric acid and pepsin secretion. However, increase in mucus production. Thus, it has ulcer protection property. In the CNS, poor entry to blood-brain barrier. However, it is a transporter, which leads to inhibitory direct injection. Thus, it causes hunger, sleepiness, and behavioral changes. In the nerve endings, afferent nerve ending are activated, and this stimulation of sensory nerve ending causes tingling, pricking sensation, and also pain. In the respiratory system, serotonin produces a small direct stimulation to bronchial smooth. Pathophysiological rules. Neurotransmitter. Neurotransmitter is a chemical substance which is released at the end of a nerve fiber by the arrival of a nerve impulse. Raphe nuclei, substantia nigra, and other sites send serotonergic impulses to limbic system, cortex, neostriatum, and also to spinal cord. This regulates body temperature, act as a mood stabilizing agent, and cognitive functions, which means the ability to process information, such as your awareness with surrounding using your perception, reasoning, judgment, and also memory. It causes vomiting like other autocoids and also regulate thought process. Precursor of melatonin. Melatonin is secreted by the pineal gland. It regulates the circadian rhythm, which is the sleep-wake cycle that repeats after every 24 hours. It is also called as biological clock. Neuroendocrine function. Hypothalamic hormones to anterior pituitary hormones are serotonergic in function. Nausea and vomiting. Nausea means feeling of vomiting, and vomiting is a result of nausea. And this is regulated by serotonin. When any cytotoxic drug enters in the stomach or any other part of the body, it is detected by the serotonin and it is refluxed out of the body in the form of vomiting. Thus, it has an emetic function. This can be also caused by radiotherapy. Migraine. There are different phases in migraine. Serotonin acts by initiating the vasoconstriction phase of migraine. This will lead to inflammation of neuron and may cause pain, nausea, and sometimes even vomiting. Hemostasis. It is hemostatic control. 5-HT causes increase in platelet aggregation, which leads to the formation of clot. Raynaud's phenomena. Release of 5-HT from platelets may trigger acute vasospastic episodes of larger arteries. Variant angina. Along with thromboxane A2, 5-HT release from platelets have been implicated in causing. Now, let us talk about the various agonists and antagonists of serotonin. Agonist is an agent which activates the receptor to produce an effect similar to that of the physiological signal molecule. Antagonist is an agent which prevents the action of agonist. The various examples of agonist are LSD, lysergic acid diethyl amide, azapirones, sumatriptan, cisapride, and buspirone. The various examples of antagonists are cyproheptadine, methysergide, ketanserin, clozapine, risperidone, and ondansetron. Sumatriptan. It is a selective agonist for 5-HT1D and 5-HT1B. It is useful in acute migraine attack. Its bioavailability is 15% and its half-life is 2 to 3 hours. It can be given orally or as a nasal spray. Sumatriptan can cause chest pain in 5% patient. Cisapride. It has peripheral 5-HT4 agonist action. It is useful in GRD, which is gastroesophageal reflux disease, and also in diabetic gastroparesis. It releases ACH from cholinergic neurons in myenteric plexus. Its oral bioavailability is 30%. Its T half is 10 hours. Cyproheptadine. It primarily blocks 5-HT2A receptors and also has additional H1 antihistaminic, anticholinergic, and sedative properties. It increases appetite and has been recommended in children and poor eaters to promote weight gain. It uses R, allergic reactions like boy fever, serotonin syndrome, carcinoid syndrome. Its adverse effects are weight gain, drowsiness, and also dry mouth. Ketanserin. It has selective 5-HT2 receptor blocking property with negligible action on 5-HT1, 5-HT3, and 5-HT4 receptors, and no partial agonist activity. Among 5-HT2 receptors, blockade of 5-HT2A is stronger than 5-HT2C blockade. 5-HT induced vasoconstriction, platelet aggregation, and contraction of airway smooth muscles are antagonized. Ketanserin is also an effective antihypertensive. Ergot alkaloids and its derivatives. Ergot is a fungus, Claviceps purpurea, which grows on rye, millet, and some other grains. Ergot alkaloids have toxic effects and are also recognized as abortifacients and poisonings, which contains LSD, histamine, acetylcholine, and tyramine. Classification of ergot alkaloids. Ergot alkaloids are classified into three types: natural, semisynthetic, and synthetic. Natural is further subdivided into amino alkaloids and amino acid alkaloids. Examples of amino alkaloids are ergometrine. Examples of amino acid alkaloids are ergotamine and ergotoxin. Semisynthetic ergot alkaloids. Example: dihydroergotamine, bromocriptine, methyl sergide. Examples of synthetic ergot alkaloids: metergolin, lyseride, and pergolide. Actions of ergot alkaloids. Ergotamine: sustain vasoconstriction, visceral smooth muscle contraction, and vasomotor center depression. Dihydroergotamine: hydrogenation reduces serotonergic actions but enhances alpha receptor blocking property. Dihydroergotoxin: ergotoxin group of alkaloid is a more potent alpha blocker and a very weak vasoconstrictor. Trade name of serotonin. Generic name is sertralin, brand name is Zoloft, and company is Anbaxy Labs Limited. Thank you.